practice here a little bit more with return statements. So this is going to be a simple program where we're going to be asking the user for how much they want of something, how much it costs, and then we will be returning the price for it. So we're going to need a couple variables here, obviously. So we'll start with int items. So this will be how many the user wants. We'll have a double price. The price of the item, I don't need to explain that further. String item name. And double tax rate. So we'll start with some basic prompts just here in the main program, although I realize we can use a function for some of this. The functions, the way we've been writing them currently, aren't good at returning more than one value. So if I've got a simple question, sometimes I'll just put it in the main program here. So cout, we're going to ask, what is the name of the item? So for this, we're going to use getLine, cin, comma, item name. So I don't know if you've realized this, but this is a function call. So the function getLine, we are sending it the arguments cin and item name, and then it will do some work in there, and then it will make item name become whatever the user is just about to type in here. So this uses a little bit of a different thing that we're going to be learning how to do shortly, is how to actually alter a variable that is being sent. Anyway, that's the story for another time. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to cout how quotation marks, how many, and then we'll use the name here. So item name. And we'll assume that it gets pluralized with an S, although, you know, if they're buying moose, that won't be the case, but we're not going to create a list in the program of how things are pluralized. So how many whatevers do you want? And we'll do a cin for items. Then we're going to ask, how much do they cost? Oops, semicolon. And then we'll cin the price. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a function here to display the total. So display total. So in order to figure out what the total is, we have to figure out, okay, what pieces of information am I sending to the method? So, the function. Display total will require the item name. It'll require the amount of the items and the price of those items. So we're going to do it this way. So now, display total here up at the top. Now, is this going to be a void or is it going to have a type? So when it is a function call that is on a line by itself, it is always a void for the purposes of this course. Same thing as actually getLine here. getLine we could write as a void if we were advanced enough to actually write this getLine function. So because this is on a line by itself, we will be writing it as a void display total like this. The next thing that we have to do is we have to put the variable. So we've got a string, and I'm just going to abbreviate things just for fun. Again, Commonly I do this here because we also have to put the types, so I need a little bit more space, and then we'll do a double for the P. There we go. And then what we're going to do is cout I, which is how many of the thing I have. Put a space here. Oh, sorry, this shouldn't be in quotation marks. I space, and then we'll put the item name. Of course, we're going to assume an S for pluralization. Costs, $. And I'm going to break this up on 2 lines just so I don't make a mega line of code here. And we're going to cout P total. And then we'll use I, comma, P for this. And then we'll do an end L. Okay, so now in this situation, I've got to put the result of this function. Now, remember that this has to happen above display total because display total uses it. So that's where I've got to put, now, what type is this going to be? Now, it's representing an amount of money, so this has to be a double. Double P total. And then it needs its variables int I, int P. Make sure these are in the right order. And then we're going to return I times P. There we go. So it does the calculation for us, returns it, and then displays it here. So I'm going to run the program just to test this out. Okay, so what is the name of the item? Well, I use the example. I'm going to buy some mousse. How many mousses do you want? I want 10 mousses. How much do they cost? $5.25. There's a sale on mousses. So it says 10 mousses cost $50. So what is going on here such that it is not receiving the 0.25? So let's take a look at what's happening here. So I have my CN price. We've got the fact that the price is a double. Display total has the item name, the items, and the price, so nothing can be happening here. Now, this is where there's an error, so you have to be careful when you, I don't know if anybody noticed this as we were doing this, but you've got an integer here. So an integer can still receive a double value, but as soon as you drop it into an integer, so it doesn't actually differentiate, it'll still be totally fine with this function call, but it will lose that value. So be very careful of that. So we're going to run this again, and we'll see if... so this time instead of a moose, I'm going to get a mouse. So how many mouses do you want? I want 10 mouses. How much do they cost? They are $10.35 a piece. Okay, and then we've got this. We can fix this up, of course, by changing the precision on this. That's not what this program's about, so we're just going to push ahead. So now... we've got this example here. Now, we've also got the tax amount and the price. So what we're going to do is we're going to repeat this, although we will be doing this for a version of the program that actually involves the tax. So we'll start with the same content here. Actually, I need this line here too. So I'm going to copy and paste here. Now, one of the things that you need to remember is that we'll be using a get line following a cin of a number value. So whenever we're making this transition, because it leaves a bunch of \n's in the input stream, we've got to clean them out. So we do that with our cin.ignore, and we'll clean out 100 of them, and what we're cleaning out are the \n's that get left there whenever the user hits the enter or return key. So we'll cin.ignore, and then we'll be ready to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the same sequence here. So what is the name of the item? How many of it? How much do they cost? And then we're going to follow this up with asking the user what the tax rate is. So cout, what is the tax rate? Cin tax rate. So we'll also be receiving this. Now we will also be sending this tax rate. But now, of course, we've got the problem that our program here isn't set up to handle this. And the first part won't work if we put a tax rate in, because if we don't send a tax rate, then we have to invent a default one, or say like if it's 0. So the easiest thing to do here is actually to make a duplicate of display total. So it's a second version of it that uses the tax rate. So what we'll do is we'll have double here. So this is going to be double t. And then we're going to be using the tax rate as well for this. So we'll also have to be sending t to the p total, or price total function. Now, it's not set up to handle this, so this is where we will incorporate this in a new version of it. So we're going to overload, meaning we're going to duplicate the name, although it'll be a different function, and it'll know this because the parameters are different. So here we've got int double. This one's going to be int double double. Double t. And then in this case, what we're going to do is we are going to return I times p, which is going to be the price, but we're going to add on I times p times t. Now, hopefully they are giving us the tax rate as a decimal. But I've just sort of simplified it for this purpose. And then what it's going to do is it's going to be running through an alternate version of this. So let's say I want to get some amount of, I'm going to get a goose. So how many gooses do I want? I want 10 gooses. The gooses cost $5.35. Here's my total. Now for the second time, what I want to do is I'm going to put in more gooses. So I want 10 gooses, $5.35, and the tax rate is 10%, which is going to be 0.1. So you'll notice that we'll get an extra 10% added to the price. All of that with only using 2 different function names, whether we are using taxes or not using taxes.